Hey there, everybody. It's Kim Snyder, creator of the Voice Club Method and director of the Voice Club. Thank you for joining me live. I'm having a little issue with tech today. It says, oh, good, it's working. Bianca, thank you. Hello back to you in South Africa. I was having an issue with my comments, but I see as soon as you posted, boom. So I guess all these 4 devices laid out in front of me are not important today. Well then, I don't want to see me that much. Let's shut them off. I see you're on Facebook. Of course, this might be fascinating. I don't know. I'm a multitasking brain. All right, Bianca, since you're the first one with me, I want you to ask me a question about pitch, okay? Because today is all about pitch, dog. If you remember the early days of American Idol, remember Randy Jackson telling everyone it's a little pitchy, dog. This is number 1 of top 5 comments that other singers that think they know something about the voice will give to other singers about their voice. And if you've sung it all, you've thought it about yourself, or somebody has said it about you or to you, which is the worst of all, because they don't know what they were talking about. Matter of fact, most singing teachers don't know either. It's not their fault. They mean well. They're just not taught what they need to know. How did I find this out? The hard way, the way no one else will do it. And that is by almost dying and losing my voice twice. There's 5 videos. You can go watch them on the YouTube channel or at thevoiceclub.com. It'll tell you how I know everything I do and why no one else knows it, unfortunately. So it's my mission to share with you the singer, to go direct to you and tell you why those singing lessons are failing, why the other things you're trying are failing, and what's really at the root of your voice. Because I see and feel and hear things that I never could before. And guess what's at the bottom of all of them? A beautiful, completely capable voice. And I know the singers I've worked with, it's changed their life. It's changed my life to know what I now know about what my voice can do. And I want it to change yours too. So today, let's think about pitch. Do you have a pitch issue? A lot of times people will say, well, yeah, I'm just tone deaf. I just have pitch issues. Tone deaf is an interesting concept. I think I talked about this in one of other live streams. Tone deaf is actually a physical condition. If you were tone deaf, FYI, you would know at birth, you would know. Because tone deaf is a situation in which there is a malformation of the inner ear so that the inner ear cannot do what it needs to do to pass the information of tone along to the brain. If you have tone deafness, you have bigger issues than pitch. So you will know if you're tone deaf. So just so you know, you can never use that excuse again. You are not tone deaf. There is something bigger at play, something more nefarious, and most importantly, something much more easily solvable. And I'm going to tell you what that is today. Okay? For those of you who are new, you'll notice that we do things completely differently here at thevoiceclub.com because I do everything completely, I would say, almost exclusively opposite of probably everything else out there. The reason is because I studied everything else, I taught a lot of everything else, and I found that not to be a solution. But it's not like I decided I was super smarter than everybody. I literally almost died and had doctors destroy my voice twice. And what I found out about my voice in the process of recovering what all the specialists in the world said would never be a voice again. And I did it twice. And the second time I gained an extra half octave. I didn't do that because I'm super smart. I did that because there are things going on in the voice that honestly, there's not enough money for them to study. And I was able to test in very rare circumstances. Since then, a little over 11 years now, I've been testing it in every kind of voice that exists. And it proves to be the same in every single voice. That's why I'm spreading this around, telling you about what's inside your voice that you really don't know about. Okay, pitch is not an issue where, people like to say, I'm born with talent, or I'm not born with talent, or I've just been doing it like this since birth. All right. I worked as a professional singer most of my life, so I just want to tell you some of these behind-the-scenes stories. I once was I did a lot of big corporate event bands, and basically you're a voice for hire and you just show up. You've got to know 40 songs, and everybody else that's hired for that gig shows up, and you all act like you've been playing together for years, and then you go on to the next band. And you tend to do the circuit and end up in the same kind of gigs with the same kind of people are in the circuit. And there was this one singer, female singer, was really good that I kept ending up in this band with. And this was way when I was still trying to figure out things for my own voice. And I would say every once in a while, because I'm a question asker, and I would say, how are you doing it? How are you reaching those notes? Because those notes are really hard for me to reach. And God bless her, she would just say, I've just always been able to do that. And it kind of reminded me of my oldest sister. I was the youngest of three in a family trio. It is said that I was born because they needed a third part harmony. But she also always felt that she was really talented and it was just natural. There's just one little problem with natural born singers. It's usually that they think it's all just natural giftedness and it'll never go away. But did you know that the truth is whether you do what you do automatically and it just happens to be great, or you don't have a clue and you can't figure it out, the same thing is true. If you don't know how sound works, if you don't know what you're doing right or wrong, what's causing that, and how to keep it or get rid of it, you are never guaranteed to keep it or get rid of it. For instance, really great singers like this one I'm talking about in particular, we were singing in a band that was doing really complex, super, super complex harmonies, and you had to be like spot on. In the middle of one of those super tight harmonies, she went horrifically flat. And I know it was sometime after we had that conversation because I saw the look of horror in her eye when it happened. Like, where did that come from and how did that come out of my mouth? It was like the first second, it was like, that can't be me. Somebody else is screwing up. And then she realized it was her voice. The reality is that pitch is not controlled by what we think it is. And unless we know how to make pitch correctly, we are never guaranteed to always be on pitch. And almost always it'll strike when we least expect it and we are the most confident. And all of a sudden a note will go awry. And it is terrifying because if that can happen when we feel like everything's going to be fine, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? I'm going to tell you how, by understanding what's at the root of pitch. Now, in every type of training, be it contemporary, Broadway, classical, rock, belt, whatever it is, it seems to be this concept of pitch is approaching notes. So we need to learn note training of some sort. Everybody's got their own little twist on note training. This is what note training reminds me of. Have you ever taken, if someone's had a pet poodle, or you'll see at these circus shows where they have trained animals, and they'll get the cute little poodles and they'll get up on their hind feet with their little tutus and they'll prance around like they're walking on 2 feet like a person, and it's so adorable, and we clap and we cheer and it's adorable, right? But the dog's going to go back to 4 feet because the dog has just learned an unnatural step, a group of steps to perform an action, an act, right? And when we note train, that's literally what we're doing with our anatomical voice. We are taking something that is an unnatural position of acts, which basically is land this note, land that note, land this note, and memorizing those steps in that act. And we tend to memorize pretty well because memorizing, we do in a lot of different things. So it comes pretty easy. And we'll memorize and we'll work on our note training, whatever method we use for note training. It's all basically just a different approach to the same exact road. It's just taking a different colored car down the same road is all it is. And then we'll think we've got notes down, and then someone along the line will do something horrible to us, like tell us we have perfect pitch, and then we feel really super confident. And then it really shocks us when we're out singing sometime and pitch doesn't happen. We're like, now I must be a failure. I mean, I did all the note training. What else is there? I'm here to tell you the problem is not your voice. The problem is the information you got, and quite honestly, the information that singing teachers get on how to fix a voice. It's at its root completely flawed. Actually, I'm working on a book called Game Changer, where I'm outlining the history of all vocal education because I couldn't believe how wrong it was, and I actually did the research just to find out how this could have gone so wrong. And I'm going to put it in a book for you. It's very enlightening. But let's start with pitch. The number one thing you need to know about your voice that you won't hear anywhere else unless they've ripped it off from us is that your voice works just like the rest of your body. It's not a big mystery. There's so many things we understand about, how to eat a healthy diet, or how to get exercise but not hurt ourselves, how much is too much weight to lift, things that we kind of instinctively know. information that's developed through science and experimentation, and you just living in your body and finding things out. The voice is really the same thing. The voice is not about the vocal cords. The voice is not about breast support. It's not about the lungs. It's not about all these other things that happen to be in your body. The voice functions much the same way as your arms and legs do. It functions with two groups of muscles. The muscles do everything. They bring everything else together. Without the muscles, none of those other things would be important. And so at the very root of pitch is the two groups of vocal muscles. In the example of the little dog that walks on its 2 feet with the little tutu on, the dog's got legs, but a dog is meant to function normally with 4 legs. And its natural function is to use all 4 of them in tandem. That's why a dog will always go back to 4 legs when it's not performing the act we've taught it to. That's exactly why, no matter how much note training you do, when you go back into your natural position, which is just to sing notes and sing songs, pitch that tries to fight and go back to that act, once we're not performing that act anymore, pitch will go right back to the problem that's causing it in the first place. That's why pitch problems arrive when we thought we didn't have any. It's also the reason that a lot of singers think they aren't singers, because they have pitch issues. Someone's told them you have horrible pitch issues, and so somebody else will tell them you're probably not a singer, you're probably not going to be a singer, and then you feel like they must be right, so you just don't sing. Please refer back to last week's live training where I proved that you are indeed a singer. You were born to sing, and why that's absolutely not my opinion. It's just anatomically, physically true. So please watch last week's. And this week, I'm going to tell you about the number, well, outside of you're not a singer. The second thing is that you're not a singer because your pitch is a problem. Pitch is a result of what the body does. Now, if we look at how the legs move, the arms move, 2 groups of muscles, the voice works based on 2 groups of muscles too. And if those 2 groups of muscles are not strong, flexible, and coordinated, then we don't do very well. I like to use the example of a gymnast. I love taking gymnastics when I was young. And you ever see these little kids on a balance beam? It's usually on the floor. And they're really wobbly, right? They have no coordination. They don't have a whole lot of strength in their muscles. And between their arms and their legs, they're trying to get their core locked in and balance. And then you see these beautiful gymnasts like at an Olympic level. And it's just like they're breathing. And they flip in the air. And it looks so easy. And you're like, how can you be that good? How can that be so easy? Because when I try to go on a balance beam, I remember my first time on a balance beam, 6 feet up in the air, and it did not feel easy. And a lot of you have sung before, and it does not feel easy. Some of you sing, and it does feel easy, but every once in a while, something will pop out of your mouth that will horrify you. You're not sure why it's there, and you're not sure how to know it won't come back. Well, let me tell you what. At the root of a gymnast is muscle, body condition in general. That goes for every part of our body. But if the muscle that controls especially the body group that we're talking about, in this case we're talking about the voice, if the muscle groups are strong, if they're flexible, if they're coordinated, then they do the task. The stronger they are, the more flexible, the more coordinated, the better they are at their tasks. The difference between an Olympic level gymnast and a beginning gymnast is the level of strength, coordination, and flexibility in those muscle groups in the body. That's why you could see these girls that are like 11 and 12, they're super young, and yet they can do gymnastics like a pro. It's just freaking amazing because even their little bodies can be trained to do that. It's the same thing with the voice. The voice can be trained to do that. The problem is that the way that teachers have been taught to train the voice is anatomically counterproductive. I want to tell you how sound is made. Oh, I don't know that we have time to go into that today. Okay, real quick. I'm going to tell you how sound is made so we can get to how pitch is formed. Sound is made by these 2 muscle groups, the vocal muscle groups, pushing the vocal cords together. The vocal cords resist the air like a big barn door. So it's really the vocal muscle that carries all the work. If you think of the big engineered barn doors and a big machine like robot arm comes and closes those doors and goes like my sound effects. I worked hard on those. Okay, if those doors are nice and secure and a big storm comes along, you get through the doors. But if it's an old, creaky, kind of worn down wooden barn door, you get through the doors. There's holes in the doors. The doors are your vocal muscle. They do everything. They close the vocal cords. They resist the air. The air's in there, but it's just kind of like it's not even a secondary player. It's a tertiary player. It's like further down the game. And that causes the resistance to the cords, and the result is sound. If you know what a kazoo is, you may have to Google it if you're younger. We used to make kazoos off of combs, and you put tissue paper over it, and then you'd kind of up against it, and it would make a buzzing sound. That is the best example that I've ever come up with how your actual anatomical voice works. Because the comb is the muscle. The tissue paper is the vocal cords. And the air that we breathe is the air that we blow in. If the comb weren't there and you just had your breath and tissue paper, you wouldn't be making sound. You have to have something of substance to hold it in place in order to blow against it to make the sound. That's how sound is made. So if you've ever seen a baby when they get to the age, they're a couple months old and they start realizing that they can change the pitch of their voice, they get so excited and they're making all these really crazy fun sounds. It's so fun to watch a baby experience sound and that they can change it. And then they start cooing and making all these high little squeals, and it's so much fun. And really they're entertaining themselves because what they're doing is they're learning to sing. They're learning to sustain pitch in different ways, and they're experimenting. Oh, if I do this, it makes that sound. If I do this, it makes that sound. And honestly, that's the way singing is meant to be for all of us. It's supposed to be that much fun that we just do things and it's like, oh, look at that note that came out. But because we've made it such a competition thing, now all of a sudden it's just like, well, I do this better than you do, or the recording sounds better than you do. You'll never sound as good as a recording. Just let yourself off the hook and watch some of my old videos, and I'll tell you why. You can never sound as good as a worst singer on a good recording. You just can't. You can't compete with technology. You've got a humanoid voice. That's all you've got. You don't have an electric guitar that's amplified. So let yourself off the hook. So if we've got the muscles in place and they're doing all the heavy lifting and all the other vocal ports are just kind of involved, I would say over 90% of every type of vocal training approach includes parts of the body in their training that are not meant to be involved in the process of singing. And actually, by enacting and memorizing those parts that you're supposed to now throw in and a million new rules to add new body parts in, we actually cause vocal problems. Sometimes when taken to the extreme and done a lot at a high level, it can cause vocal damage. Not always, and most singers don't sing at a high enough level to cause vocal damage, but what you will notice is you don't sing something like you used to. You have new problems. You might have a new solution, but you have new problems. That's because the solution is flawed, not because your voice is flawed. So, how do we make pitch? Well, let's take these two muscle groups and let's say they're me doing gymnastics. They're not in shape, they don't work out, they don't train, but I still want to get up there on that 6-foot balance beam, and I've decided I'm going to walk that beam confidently. I'm going to have confidence because I believe I'm a gymnast in my heart. I've been told my whole life I'm a gymnast. I haven't been doing any gymnastics, but I mean, I have arms and legs and a core. Why not get up there, right? Well, I can be as confident as I want, and I can believe that I'm a gymnast. But when I get out there, if my muscles are not strong, coordinated, and flexible enough to do whatever it is, the task that I'm asking, whether it's just walking on the balance beam or a triple lutz would be ice skating, wouldn't it be? The trilly little dismount in the air. Whatever I'm asking the muscle to do, if it doesn't have the capacity to do it because it's not in shape and coordinated and flexible enough to do it, it will fail. Now, sometimes we'll ask our voice to do something that's not really that hard, like get up and walk on the balance beam, but it's sitting on the ground. And we'll walk and it'll just happen and we'll be like, see, I am a singer, right? But then all of a sudden you're singing a song, and while you don't even realize it, some of those notes are really taking that balance beam and they're lifting it further and further off the floor. And you might have been fine when that song started, but when you get to the chorus, when you get to the bridge, heaven forbid, all of a sudden it feels like it's a whole different game, and you find yourself in a place where you just wish this song was over. Ever felt like that? Yeah, half my career. Yeah, that's why I was constantly studying new things, trying to find a solution for it. Turns out the teaching was the problem. Now, when we go to approach pitch, the muscle has to do the work to decide what the motion is that we need to sustain the pitch. So Just like your muscle needs to be strong enough to hold your body's balance more if you're 6 feet in the air than if you're on the ground, certain pitches will require a finer motor function between those groups of muscles. And if those two groups of muscles don't work well together, which in most singers they don't, and I'm going to tell you why, the biggest reason they don't is not our fault. I'll make a note for myself so I don't forget to tell you. Fail. Why you fail? It's not your fault. If the muscles cannot do or can't figure it out fast enough, what we're asking it to do, the result is anything from feeling slightly like you're not going to land that note to a horrific nightmare note that everybody hears. Oh, give you a little insider secret. Did you know that even if you totally screw up a note, if your face says you nailed it, did you know that 3 out of 4 times, I tested this. I used to do, I love testing things. I used to, when I would fail, I would say, if I do this, how many people noticed and how many people didn't? How many people said something, how many people didn't? Because I was failing regularly, I figured, why not test this? 3 times out of 4, if you can make a smile on your face like, yes, I nailed that note, people will accept that you meant to do that and never even think about it again, even though they heard the note fail. It's crazy. Singing is acting, honestly. But much better is to be able to nail the note. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why you fail most often. It's not your fault. Honestly, the reason we fail, and those notes, we get that unstable part, that shaky part, or it feels weak, or you feel strong and then all of a sudden it flips, or you lose control. It feels like the floor dropped out from underneath you. Have you ever felt that? Leave me your comments if you had. Oh, yes, there's one right there. Yes, call it jazz. All right, who's in here under my name? It's got to be Naomi because that's my logo. Yes, that's what we call jazz. It's a little inside teacher joke. When the note falls apart and you fall someplace else, you put a smile on your face and you go, "It's jazz." If you've sung jazz, you know what I mean. Okay, so when we began recorded music, oh, I can't wait to go through this in the book Game Changer. Really, music changed once we started recording music. That's when we all decided we weren't singers, is when people started recording. That's when we decided we could never sound as good as them, and we all gave up on ourselves. But a long time ago, people, actually in the 1800s, people were trying to teach people how to sing like other people by copying other people. And like I've already told you, over 90% of singing instruction comes from, at the core, copying something else. And when you copy, it's no better than putting a 4-legged animal on 2 legs and teaching him how to do an act. But it'll always go back to 4 legs because that's natural. Our voice is always going to want to go back to what it naturally does. And if you aren't working with what it naturally does, when it goes there, it's going to totally yank you out of what you thought you were going to do. And that's why we fail. Now, when we all started trying to record music, we'd get into the studio producers and engineers and get with these singers, and they would write these songs for them and have them record them. And they would realize that they could only like scream through certain notes, especially when we get into pop and rock. There's a lot of big, chesty notes, and even Broadway to some extent. And then all of a sudden there was this weak spot they couldn't get through. Sometimes they would make them scream through it. There's all sorts of tactics we do in the studio to try to get a singer through that. By the way, none of which are healthy for the singer, but chances are the producer doesn't know that because that's not their job to know that. It's actually the singer's job to know if someone's making you do something unhealthy, and singers don't know, which is kind of why I do what I do, so that you know. But we started writing music around the fault of those singers. Those singers had been taught to do certain things. Hey, Brittany. Yeah, I'm going to put your comment on because this is a good one too. Let's see if I can get that one on here. I am missing my mouse. Let's see if I click. If I click, will that put? There we go. Did Brittany's comment go up? After a year, you felt like your voice has gotten weaker, not as good as it was. Yeah, it's so not you. It's not you when you take singing lessons. By the way, never, ever, 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 ever again in your life, promise me that you will never believe somebody that says, when you say, how long will it take to get better? And they tell you 6 months, walk away, save your money, buy ice cream, buy clothes, buy jewelry, buy yourself something, buy anything, get a movie ticket. It's a much better investment of money. To get your voice to sound better takes 5 seconds with me. Sorry. It does not take 6 months. If a teacher has been taught something that is going to take months, even weeks, then what they are teaching you is an act, just like the dog on 2 feet. They're teaching you an act. It is not going to be naturally working with your voice. It's going to have new pitfalls that you didn't have before. It might unlock a solution for you, and their goal is to get you to a specific solution. And the rest of the things you want for your voice aren't necessarily in their wheelhouse. Bianca says, I've learned exactly as you explained. Yes, we talked about this a little bit before, haven't we? Yes, people are distracted by terms. Yeah. Outside of never spending your money on somebody that says that it'll take months to do something, you should also never spend money learning how to breathe, because chances are you did it when you were born and you're still doing it now. If I put you on live, you'd still be doing it now. I'm just saying, breathing's not the problem. Okay, back to the singers in the studio. So singers were in the studio and the producers are like, we can't get these guys to get past these notes. What are we going to do? We have a deadline. We have to get an album out. Guess what they started doing? They started writing all the music around the notes they could sing and doing what is known as popping the octave. You ever get to that part in the song where it just flips into something super high and lovely and we're like, oh, I wish I could sing like that? That was actually designed around the weakness in singers. That was a result of bad teaching. Bad, rampant, professional level teaching that limited singers that were going to record in the studio from being able to reach those middle notes. By the way, where that all falls apart, that weak spot in the middle, is actually the joint between those two muscle groups of your voice. Just like a bicep and tricep, this, where they trade off between them, is the weakest part in that joint. Where those notes tend to fall apart, that's right in the weakest part. That's why we say strength, flexibility, and coordination. Well, wait. Yes. But exactly. Sorry. Okay. So we have now popular music to thank for making us worse singers. Because now all the music we want to sing that we want to be good at, we're like, oh, they're getting through it. Okay, first of all, I happen to know because I worked as an engineer, I worked as a producer, I worked as an audio producer, I did all these things. I worked as a professional singer and a studio singer. And I've been on the inside of all sorts of different levels of this kind of stuff, from jingle sessions to album sessions, backup sessions. And what we tell singers to do is basically anything we have to get them to get the song done by the deadline. That's the producer's job. And if they don't know what can be damaging to the voice, which is not their job, it's really not their problem. Because it's honestly, it's not their job. It's actually the singer's job to know. But no one's telling the singers except me. Okay? If it ever feels uncomfortable, it's a red flag. If it ever falls apart, it's a weakness in the muscle. If a note doesn't happen, it has nothing to do with talent. Check, go back, I think it was last week's live session or the one before. I showed you the talent formula. I can actually show you what are the ingredients and the amount of talent you have and how to get more of it. You were born with plenty of potential for great talent. That's not the problem. The problem is that the muscles, the two muscle groups in your vocal cords, are not independently strong enough. They are not together coordinated and flexible enough. They don't work well enough together to be able to consistently do what they're naturally supposed to do, which is to nail pitch all the time. Now, I do want to tell you about something that happens to really good singers that have no pitch problems, because you can be live and get pitchy all of a sudden. It freaks singers out because, again, if you don't understand why something's going right in your voice, you never know why it can go wrong and how to get it back. Knowing the why is the most important thing you can know about anything in your body. And it is no harder to learn the why behind what your voice does than it is behind how your legs work. It really isn't any more mysterious than that. Anyone who teaches you that is somebody who has been taught that and has been taught an incomplete method that is not going to help you. Literally, you could just absorb all of my free material, never pay a dime, and learn more by far. I'm just saying, right? I don't sell hardly anything, if ever, when I do, because I just want to help you, right? I get the time for it. Okay. So I was doing one of these big festivals, like 40,000 people, whatever. When I was an opening act for the big label act. And have you ever seen those big festival stages and you get like 2 or 3 drum kits or setups? So 2 or 3 different band setups are on that big festival stage. And the biggest drum set on the biggest risers for the biggest band. You know how it goes, and the little drum sets for the opening band. So we were the opening band. And so here's what happens at festivals. Music is such an ego-driven thing. It's just stupid. It's just so stupid. But you hire these audio guys and they fly in from some place and they've got, like the 400 channel board in the tent out there, and they set everything up, and they're paid by the label to come in and make the label group sound good. They could care less about the opening band. They don't care who you are. They don't care if you ever get big, which is important to some people. I could care less, but they don't care about you as a person. They literally work for the headline band. So they tend to have bad attitudes. Not all of them. I've worked with some fabulous audio people, and audio people are my people. But I'm just saying, there are a lot of people that fly in for these things that will just treat you like dirt because they can, unless they work for you. And if you're not the main act, they don't work for you. We happen to have one of those, and I've done several of festivals, so this does not happen like all the time, but this time it did. It's a great example. I was singing just fine, but we had sound checked. Everything was fine, and you sound check in reverse order, and they memorize these things into the board, and they push a button, and it literally memorizes the settings once they set them. Literally all they have to do when you get up there to play is push the button that turns on your presets. This is the beauty of doing bigger gigs. It becomes more automated, and more automated means better more of the time. most of the time, right? That's why we think we can't compete with professionals. They sound that good for a reason. They've got all that tech behind them. But literally all these guys had to do was push the button to turn our monitors on. But we started playing, and as soon as the guys started playing, they noticed our monitors were not on. Now you get those tower monitors that are like 4 stories high that go out, to the stadium, and it takes like 2 to 4 seconds for it to come back to your ear. Your ear cannot match pitch listening at a 1.5 to 4 second delay. It's the brain freaks out a bit, and it goes, which tone were we on? Where are we at? It's a brain explosion is really what happens. But I looked at the sound guy. As soon as I saw the guys looking at their monitors, I looked at the sound guy. I'm like trying to do the eye thing. Push the button. And he did this, and he sat back like this. He's like, and he just refused to push the button. He was having a bad day. I don't know. We were nice to him. I don't know what the deal was. He chose not to turn our monitors on, and we had to play the entire set with it was closer to like a 2.5 to 4 second slap back based on, where the sight line was in the seats and all that. It was a nightmare. It was literally like, I thought, this is like singing, like walking blind. This is singing blind because you can't tell what note you're supposed to be on. And I literally had to just kind of plug into, pretend I'm not listening, and I'm singing this in my head. What note comes next? It was a really great experiment. I've never gotten a chance to try something out like that before. Hey, Mindy. So a good singer can be put in a position where they have a terrible time telling pitch. Usually that's because of an in-ear monitor issue. If you've been in a worship band and had to use in-ear monitors, different things like that, you may have experienced something like this. It's a reason some singers prefer in-ears. Some singers hate them. I'm a hater. I just like room sound. I like to know what the room sounds like. And I think it's an artificial tone that you get in your ear. And I think it's personal preference. Really has nothing to do with anything else. Personal preference. So we have pitch issues. Number one, always pitch issues. Doesn't matter if you feel you've never nailed a note in your life, or if you feel you're a great singer, but every once in a while, out of the middle of nowhere, something will happen and you don't know why it happens. You all have the same problem. And that is those muscle groups have not been trained in a way that they are both individually strong, coordinated, and flexible together. So trained to work like they work. You do not get an Olympic level gymnast to do the little spins in the air and come down unless that body has been trained in the way that body works. And yet, the way that we train singers, and I'm talking over 95% of every single way to train a singer out there, the way that we train singers is like we train a poodle to walk on 2 legs. It's an act, it's an unnatural act, and if a poodle were to walk on 2 legs forever, it would begin to have physical problems because that's not naturally the way a poodle walks. But a poodle can walk on 2 legs for a while and we cheer. Well, a singer can sing and do all these special 2-hour repertoire lessons. And oh, sure, we can do that, but it's not good for the voice. And it doesn't unlock what your voice is capable of. Now that you guys are all here and engaged, I really want you to tell me what you want to hear next time in next week's, because I might go off onto some topic you could care less about, right? Tell me what you want me to cover, because the whole idea of me doing these live streams is to answer your questions. And ask me questions on pitch today. I'm having some trouble clicking over because I left my mouse someplace else. And it's just not clicking over. I put your comments up there. So, okay. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to read your comments, but please let me know. And if you're watching this on the replay, also I watch all of the comments and I check all of them. By the way, so many sweet comments. Thank you so much. So very, very nice comments. I love you back. But I really want to know how I can serve you. What do you struggle with, or what do you have a question about, or what have you gotten singing advice on that you want to know? Just I got no horse in this game. I'll give you my opinion of what I think about what someone else told you to do. Maybe like many people I've worked with, you're a singing teacher and you're questioning maybe what you've been told to teach. This happens a lot. This happens a lot because singing teachers are almost always singers that somewhere along the line stopped singing because they had questions too. Okay. Mindy says the in-ear monitors, you can't wear 2 at a time. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Here's why wearing 2 in-ear monitors at a time really messes with your pitch. Like I said, one of the things that I don't care for in in-ear monitors is because it's an artificial signal. So now you can say, and as an audio producer, I can say, I can send a signal to your in-ear monitor that is just totally your voice. It's clean. And it would be a pure signal of your voice. And how could that be wrong? That is true for all you audio people out there. But if I put that pure example of your voice in that in-ear and you plug both of them in, what you're missing in your inner ear, which is designed to grab all of the frequencies in the room and take all that information and filter it to your brain so that your brain can tell the vocal muscle what to do to continue. What we've done is we have now locked out all of the other frequency information in the room. This is why a lot of singers will, like even when we're recording in the studio, we'll have one headphone off, even if it's just you in the studio, or if you're live, you'll have one in-ear in and one out. My opinion on the in-ear monitors is based not only on my personal comfort level, which you just have to decide for yourself, but also just knowing what I know about frequencies in the ear, that information is important for the brain to get, because if and when one of the other guys in the band or girls starts playing a little off pitch, I'm just saying you can make a bad instrument sound better by coloring the sound of the note that you're doing and still stay on pitch. It's a complex thing. I'm not on time to get into, but you can actually make somebody who's playing a bad instrument sound better if you know how to color a note. So if you didn't have the awareness that that was happening, what would happen is you'd only have the reference of your note. You'd be trying to nail better your own reference of your own note, and it would make either the other singer that's going off or another instrument that's going off, you would make them stand out worse. One of these days I'm going to go over, and you guys will have to let me know what you want to hear, but I can go over the difference between singing lead and singing backup. People tend to think singing backup is not a real job, but it is. If you know how to sing backup, it is a way harder job than singing lead is any day. Singing backup, if you know how to do it and you know how to do the things that you can do as a backup singer, the whole job is to make everybody else sound better when they fail. That's the job of a backup singer, not just to fill out the sound. It's to actually listen for how they're screwing up and to accommodate that sound and round it out so that they sound better. Mindy says yes. Yeah, it is amazing once you understand the voice, what it can do, what you can do with it. I am not joking. I used to tell singers, it's like DiCaprio in the front of Titanic, I'm the king of the world. That's the way it felt when I started singing. It was like, I can't believe my voice is just doing this. I just opened my mouth, my voice is doing this, and it's just going. How has this happened? But since then, I've been able to train every other singer I've trained to do the same thing. So I know it's not just me. I'm not some freak of nature. Well, I am a freak of nature. I survived, right? I got my voice back twice. But this gives me information about your voice. So if you have a pitch issue, it's not your voice. Now, why is your muscle not working like it needs to be? Chances are really, really good. It's because you've gotten one of the 95 kinds of percent of teaching out there that does not benefit. It teaches you to walk on two legs as a dog. It's just an act. It's not a natural motion for your muscle. And if you haven't even taken any singing lessons before, your singing brain, your database is full of singing advice from other people you've copied that you think sound good, which are usually produced vocals from albums, which you are not hearing what the voice is even really sounding like either. Have you ever, I'm going to read those in just a second, guys. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. Have you ever, I love Songland. If you haven't seen the show Songland, you've got to, if you want to know how collaboration really works in the studio, this is like a master class in collaboration. But they have artists in there from different labels, and they have songwriters come in and pitch their songs. Even if you're not a songwriter, if you love to sing, you should really watch Songland, because some of these artists will come in and they'll be singing along. They're singing just in the room. You've got to hear this, because some of them you're like, dang, you're so good, right? And then some of these other, especially the newer pop singers, they'll be like, yeah, they're singing along, and you're like, dude, is that what you sound like? It's a good wake-up call to hear singers outside of a produced environment. Lets you know that they are just being dressed up the best they can with what they have. But guess what? Your voice doesn't have to be dressed up like a poodle with a tutu. You don't have to be taught an act to copy somebody else, to be a secondhand copy of someone else. Is that really the best that we can get? Oh, someday I want to sound like so-and-so. Oh, I want so much to be a secondhand copy of somebody. No, you are an original. Your voice was designed to sound unique like nobody else. And every time we remold our voice and shove it in this tiny little round hole to sound like somebody else, you are stripping it of all the unique qualities that it's meant to have, to sparkle like you. All right. Thank you for saying I'm brilliant. I don't know. My eye just went to that one first. Okay. Barbara says, I want to have a better understanding of how to sing harmony. And yes. Oh, that's it. I'm going to write it down. Harmony next week. Thank you, Bethany. Harmony next week. Bethany, you were at a boot camp that I taught. I talked about harmony briefly. But yes, we're going to talk about harmony, why people don't seem to know harmony, why it's so hard to learn. And guess what? Shocker. The answer to all of these problems is the teaching that we get is coming from an act. We're teaching people to act a certain way, or stand a certain way, or pose a certain way, instead of unlocking what the anatomy is supposed to be doing. And secondarily to that, and sometimes even more, we're copying other singers that have been taught the same stuff. So if you copy a singer that's been taught something wrong, and 95% of the time they have been taught something wrong, it doesn't matter if they've paid $1 million to learn that. They're still doing something that's not good for them. They're making the best of it, and you're copying the best that they can do with bad teaching. Think of it that way. Yet, you have this diamond. Sometimes a diamond in the rough, I'll give you that. You know what? My diamond's got lots of rough spots still, right? The voice is a beautiful thing that's constantly growing. But to be able to approach your voice and say, you know, hey, I'm going to let it do what it needs to do. By the way, at the root of this pitch issue, when the muscle is strong, flexible, and coordinated, and by the way, 95% of the teaching out there some of them will approach one or two, sometimes three of these things, but as they do, they throw new rules in that don't belong in those muscle groups that actually make those three things sometimes impossible. So while some of the things they're doing may have to do with growing strong muscle, they're adding something else into there because they've been told to do that, because somebody better than them published it in a book 50 years ago, and it must be right, right? It's like everything on the internet's right. Duh. No, it's not. Just because it's in a book or taught in a university doesn't mean it's right. We didn't even have the science to study it. I found these things out by finding out what my voice could physically do, when all of the medical professionals said, oh, well, the science doesn't support that the voice can do that. Well, then how am I talking? How am I singing? How did I gain an extra half octave? Is it because I should just stop talking now because you told me the science says I can't? Or do we have to question what we really know? That's all I'm saying. All right, so harmony. Bianca says, I found that when I have to use in-ears, it's much easier if I can mix it directly myself. Oh, yes. If you have the opportunity, by the way, if you even do like a coffee house gig, you like for $40, you can get one of these little monitors that sit up on a stand. You can get them on Musician's Friend, Guitar Center, Amazon, anywhere, and plug in, and then you can change the little dials all by yourself. By the way, I'm going to give you a little EQ trick. Okay, you don't have to know anything about audio to be able to do this. Let's say you're going to get one of these little $40 monitors. You're going to set it up at a coffee shop gig. If you want to know how to mix so that you can accurately hear what you need to hear in your in-ear, or even just out of your monitor, if you prefer to listen to it that way, there are going to be probably 3 dials, just like there are on your home stereo. Like sometimes you have the little notches you move up and down, and the ones on the left are the boom, boom, boom. The ones in the middle are the muddy mids, and the ones at the right side are the sharp, tingy, tingy little highs. And sometimes you'll have the little knobs on those little monitors. Some say highs and mids and lows. All you need to know is lows are boom, boom, mids are mud, and highs are ting, ting, ting. That's the frequencies those address in your voice. If you are a male, you're going to want to turn up your mids just a tiny bit and turn down your lows. That'll give you a much better representation of what your pure voice is doing. If you are a female, you're going to want to make sure your mids are turned down, and lows don't so much matter. I like to pump up the lows because I like to feel like I sing like a man sometimes. So much for no notifications. Evidently, I've got one on. Clearly it's something important. That was an alert. I mean, the world's probably ending right now, but here we are talking about how to sing better. I'd rather do this. I don't know about you. World be damned. I want to sing better. So girls, mids are your enemy. Turn up your highs a little bit and you'll be able to hear a purer texture in your voice when you've got that. Mindy says, I sent my dad, who is a pro singer since he was 19. He was floored by my commercials and sound bites you found online. Oh, yeah, I should put those back up. Yeah, my site's down. Yeah, I did a bunch of commercial stuff. When you do voiceovers, like for commercials, it's voice acting. And we say it's voice acting. You know, the funny thing is singing is voice acting too. You want to know why so many really good singers become actors? Because singing is acting. If you can sing, you can act. How do you think we get by when we fail? We act like we didn't fail. It's acting. But you can't get actors to sing. Have you seen this new show, I Can Hear Your Voice? I Can See Your Voice? Where they get someone up there and they may be a singer or they may not be. They may be a good singer or a bad singer, according to those people. And they're lip syncing to something else. And the people are supposed to guess. And usually there's a couple singers in the panel. You're supposed to guess if they're a real singer or not. It's so easy to tell if people can't sing. I mean, you could get a really good actor, and I've seen actors in TV shows and movies that aren't singers, that are playing singers, and you're like, dude, you can't even pull it off. But a singer can act. Just saying. Worry about singing. Acting is secondary, and it comes along with the gig. It's called being a good performer. That is acting. Just saying. And voice acting, when you do commercials, is the same. It's putting on a character. It's acting. So, not only do you not have a pitch issue, not only are you capable of not only knowing that you won't go off pitch, but controlling the pitch before it goes off. Did you know that you could do that? There are some crazy, freakishly amazing things that the voice can do that I found out not only in mine, but in the voices that I've trained. Not only can you color your notes to make somebody else that's not so good around you sound better, but you can literally, no joke, you can change when and how you bridge, if you know what a bridge is. It's the weak part between the muscles where the voice falls apart and is not strong, tends to flip, or else you have to scream through it, and then it gets then all of a sudden the high notes are gone because it's too hard. It's that place. It's the place where all good things go bad. It's that place in your voice. It's the second bridge technically, but it's the bridge we all are supposed to be able to sing through, that all the music skips over. And now that when we listen to all that music that now skips over that bridge, guess what? We never sing through that bridge. And guess what happens then? We further weaken our muscle just by singing along to popular music because we never try to even sing through there. We might scream a couple notes, But we're never successfully going to copy someone getting through there because almost no one successfully sings through there that is a recording artist. Now, let me tell you why. These are not the best singers in the world. I just want to recall your memory to a time when you've listened to somebody on the radio and thought, I could sing better than that. You know you have. I mean, if you're alive and you've sung, you've thought this once or twice. And I want you to know you are not wrong. You can sing better than some of the recording artists that have been out there, probably several of them a lot of times. The truth is they are fixed in the mix. And I actually knew someone who knew someone, you know, that kind of thing, who worked on the Madonna True Blue album. That's actually when they created pitch, like we shift pitch in the studio where they take a note that's off and you technically can change it so that it's on pitch tuning. That's all it is, right? They created the tool pitch tuning for Madonna for the True Blue album because she didn't sing any note in any song on. She didn't sing any note. They actually created the technology to make that album sound good. So, I mean, yay, we've created technology around bad singers, but wouldn't you rather be a good one? The truth is, you can sing better than a lot of recorded artists. Stop comparing yourself to them. Technology is used to make them sound good. But the other thing that is sad but true about recording artists is they used to have, like, you know, lifetime careers. Now they have like one song. You get one hit, something like that, right? And then it's over. They're a commodity. People don't invest in the life of a singer's voice. They don't. People that are hired by an album, like a producer, even a vocal coach, aren't meant to get you through a tour at most. They're not hired for the longevity and the life of your voice. Matter of fact, most of what they do will minimize the life of your voice. And every once in a while, I'm not a fan of working with recording artists because they have too many people that are in the mix that have an ulterior motive. And my motive is the absolute power, unleashing of the voice and the longevity of the voice. And what they'll tell the same singer to do, which they have to do because label's paying for them, right, will absolutely shorten the length of the voice. And it's very frustrating for me as a coach to have all that work undone constantly, to fight back and forth. So it's not my favorite thing to do, honestly. I'd rather fix singers who actually have control over their voice. You can sing better than people. Pitch. The problem with pitch is that you've been copying other singers. It's also because you've been probably singing along for years to some kind of popular music that's skipping the hardest part to sing through and therefore weakening that muscle even more. And because 95% of everything out there teaches you to add in rules that are unnatural for the way your voice is actually supposed to work. And yes, Bianca, longevity is key. Did you know Bob Hope's wife started learning to sing in her 90s? In her 90s. That, you know, when you get older and you get that kind of warbly weakness to your voice, that does not have to be there. It's because we tend to be sedentary. Muscle weakens as we get older. It has everything to do with muscle. Everything. Vibrato getting wide, and even whether we're young and it's wide or we get older and it gets wider, it's because muscle definition, strength, coordination, flexibility is waning and there's nothing rebuilding it. And that is the result of it. What we're hearing is not something you have to have. It's just the result of what is happening in the anatomy of your voice. So I need to give you guys something, some kind of, see, this is the thing. I can't give you, my workout tools are like heavy. It's like going to a gym with a really good coach that picks up heavy weights, but really knows how to get the most out of it. And you kind of have to be under a good coach to know what you're doing. But I will tell you this. Look over every vocal exercise you've ever done, ever. Look for people that do vocal exercises or teach vocal exercises. This is extremely annoying to me, so I can't do it, but you can do this for me. Look at anyone do anything and look for something that has an H in it. Remember, H is the singer's enemy. H literally tells the muscle to go on vacation. It says, hey, muscle, we don't need you. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be coordinated. You don't have to be flexible. We don't even need you to sing. It's a lie from the pit of hell. But H is a singer's enemy. So I always say, get the H out of there. If you have an exercise that's he, ho, 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 you're going to have no voice, no control over pitch. Your voice is going to be wonky all over the place. It's going to be weak. listen to other singers, what they do, and be like, when they try to lift an H, it's like H weighs nothing. Like if H were a weight, it would be air. It does nothing for your muscle. Don't listen to that. All right, I got to wrap it up. I got a few minutes left. If anyone has any last minute questions, don't forget muscle tension. Oh, yes. Physiological problems. That's going to be a little deep. Maybe Bianca asked me if I could talk about muscle tension that have to do with physiological problems. We may talk about vocal damage, and I may touch on dysphonia, because that is vocal dysphonia. I suffered severe vocal dysphonia. Most people don't come back from that. And it can be physiological. Physiological just means that there is usually a physical factor that starts a problem in the voice, but then it creeps into your brain. And just like other things, like if we have a confidence problem, because let's say we tripped once, we were walking in high heels and we tripped, and then we start to believe we can't walk in high heels, and then we can't walk in high heels because we believe we can't walk in high heels. It's the same thing. Something happens to our voice physically, and we experience that, so we experience failure, and then that gets stuck in our brain. And then at the end of it, even when our voice physically can do something, our brain will physically stop the muscle from doing what it needs to do. It's a real thing. I remember, I know whispering is like one of the most damaging things you can do for your voice. You never whisper. It's just blowing H. It's basically sandblasting your vocal cords. So when you're sick and you feel like, I can't talk, and you're doing this all the time, don't do that. It's just bad. But even though I knew that, I had so much pain in my recovery that I was with the world's top singing vocal coach whispering, and I knew better. And I literally could not stop myself from whispering because the pain was so great. It was like it was a physiological response. So I don't know how deep we can get into that, Bianca, just basically because I don't know how many people have struggled with that, but I will talk about dysphonia and mental causing physical. Okay, I'm writing that down. All right, H and W, yeah, okay. And we'll talk about lifting some muscle. Oh man, you know what else I need from you guys? I want to do some song fixes. Is there a song that has a hard part in it, or you find hard to sing in a certain key? I don't care what it is. Song fix. I'm taking suggestions for those. Those are really fun because I can actually walk through and fix a song for you. And no more airy fairy. Yeah, right. Okay, so song suggestions, things you want to learn, comments, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the replay. I really want to know what you want to know. I don't do this to hear myself talk. Matter of fact, in 3 minutes, I got to go teach. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for interacting, so much, especially for all you guys here live. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. If nobody shows up, I quit doing this. If people stop commenting, I quit doing this. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. So as long as it serves you, I'm going to keep doing it. Okay? So you let me know what you want to know, and I will do my best to make it available in this time. I can't tell you how much your interaction means. It's very frustrating to me that I can help singers in huge ways, and so many singers seem to think they know the answers because they've paid for a lot of nonsense that's actually making them worse. And it hurts my heart, and it physically hurts my voice to hurt for them when I hear them sing. So I want to help you guys be able to do that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Next week, what did I say we're going to do? Harmony next week, okay? Give me your song ideas, and we'll start doing some song fixes. And then I'm going to put it on my list for vocal damage. We'll talk about how your brain can get in the way of your physical voice too. Thank you guys. I will see you next Tuesday.